even is a rising sign? Okay, so the rising sign is the most important placement in your birth chart because it literally sets up the way that your birth chart is supposed to look. The rising sign is all about your appearance, you know, how you look, how you act. The rising sign basically represents your soul, represents like the exact moment that your like soul entered your body, like during birth. Basically the sign on the horizon at the exact moment that you were born, which is why having your birth time is so important whenever you're getting an astrology reading, because if the rising sign is wrong, then the whole reading is wrong. Literally just a few minutes can change a lot. But either way, if you have a Pisces rising, the most noticeable thing about Pisces risings are the eyes, the stare. Pisces rising people definitely come off very spiritual, even if they're not. Like, they're usually like, think like Kourtney Kardashian, how she's like into like the health and all that stuff. You know, every Pisces rising has their own way of showing it. And the way that you determine how someone shows it is by looking at their chart ruler. So what's interesting about Pisces is that in traditional astrology, Jupiter was its ruler, right? And it still is. But in modern astrology, it's commonly associated with Neptune. But see, me as an astrologer, I like to look at both of them. So I like to look at someone's Jupiter placement and someone's Neptune placement in their birth chart. So here are a few celebrity examples of Pisces rising, so you'll kind of get what I mean. First of all, we've got Billie Eilish. She is a Pisces rising. Her Jupiter is in her Cancer 5th house. As you know, she is a musician. You know, the 5th house rules over creative projects and everything, so that actually makes a lot of sense that she puts a lot of herself into her creative projects. Now, she's also ruled by her Neptune in the 12th house. The 12th house is very hidden. It's all about mental health and everything like that. Having her Neptune in the 12th house, obviously, she's very good at getting her subconscious thoughts out in a way that other people relate to them. So the two rulers of Pisces, Jupiter is the planet of good luck, of abundance. Wherever Jupiter is in your birth chart, it literally expands. It wants to spoil you. It wants to give you all the blessings. And especially if you were born in the daytime and you're a Pisces rising, this is great news for you. But Neptune rules over creativity. It rules over, you know, confusion and illusions. Also addiction to a certain extent, which is why I think Pisces risings are more likely to, you know, develop some sort of addiction to something, not necessarily, you know, drugs or alcohol, but it could be, you know, sex, or it could be different things in life. You know, too much of anything is a bad thing. And the downsides of both Jupiter and Neptune is that they both rule over, you know, overindulgence. And as a Pisces rising, just make sure that you're being like balanced. I mean, obviously I'm not here to have like a sermon about what you should be doing and should not be doing, but I'm just giving you some examples, you know? So another celebrity who has a Pisces rising is Ellen Pompeo. She's Meredith Grey from Grey's Anatomy. Both of her chart rulers are her Jupiter in Libra in her 8th house of secrets and her Neptune in her Scorpio 9th house of long-term travel and learning. We've also got Whitney Houston. Her Jupiter is in Aries in her 2nd house of money, and her Neptune is in her Scorpio 9th house of long-term travel. Now, the thing about Whitney Houston is that she very famously had a drug problem. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, every single Pisces rising has a drug issue, but obviously this is just going to depend on your chart. It's going to depend on your individual life. Just please be careful of addictions to things, please. That's all that I ask of you if you watch this video. But anyways, okay, so Pisces is your 1st house, right? It's all about the self. Pisces is a very emotional sign. Pisces is, you know, the last sign of the zodiac, so it has a piece of all the other signs, which is why they relate to other people so well. Having Pisces in the 1st house is directly opposite of having Virgo in the 7th house. So if the 1st house is about the self, then the 7th house is about the other. In traditional astrology, the 7th house is all about marriage. It's all about relationships, you know, long-term partnerships, but it can also represent business partnerships as well. So the 7th house basically tells you what your type is. Virgo is an earth sign, and it's a sign that basically wants everything to be perfect, wants everything to be in order. You know, Virgo is a sign that just wants to improve their surroundings and the surroundings of people in their life. Pisces risings tend to attract Virgo energy and vice versa. Your 7th house is ruled by Mercury, so you definitely want to take a look at your Mercury placement and the aspects that Mercury is making to other planets to give you more information on, you know, your future spouses, your love life, things like that. But there's also another piece of your love life that we'll get to a little bit later. Pisces risings have Aries in the 2nd house. The 2nd house is all about money. It's all about what you value. It's about your self-worth. It's about your relationship with food, your relationship with money. How do you handle the money that's in your pocket right now? So the 2nd house is kind of like your bank account. So having Aries in the 2nd house means that Pisces risings can sometimes be really impulsive spenders. You know, Aries energy is very impulsive. It's very passionate. It's very fiery. And it's almost childlike in a way sometimes. So Pisces rising should really be careful, you know, of the way that they spend money, because y'all can be really reckless with it. Your second house is ruled by Mars, which in astrology is known as one of the malefics, aka it brings trouble kind of wherever it goes. Because Mars can be pretty constructive when it wants to be, but having Mars ruling over your second house might mean that sometimes Pisces risings might find themselves in a bit of financial trouble, or, you know, find themselves arguing about money with other people sometimes. Now, directly opposite of the second house is the 8th house. So both of these houses deal with money. The 8th house is all about the money that you get from other people, you know, the money that people cash out to you, the money that you get, you know, if you're a writer, that would be your royalties. You know, if you're a waitress, that would be your tips. Like, this is the money that you get from other people. Like, if you sell an NFT, the money that you get from that would be other people's money. The 8th house also represents your sexual nature. To an extent, it does rule over your spirituality and very sudden gains and sudden losses. So having Libra in the 8th house can kind of mean that you're very charismatic, especially when it comes to your sexual partners or whenever you're like in a sexual situation. Libra is a sign that's ruled by Venus, and Libra is known as the like curated Venus sign. Like, Libra is always looking to become more aesthetically perfect. So I would not be shocked to see that Pisces risings like put on makeup and like get all dolled up specifically for their sexual situations, or specifically whenever they're going to go shopping, because that's another thing the 8th house kind of rules over as well. But definitely you want to take a look at your Venus placement, and it'll give you a lot more information than I can. And obviously if you get a chart reading, I would have all the information in front of me. Pisces risings also have a Taurus 3rd house. So the 3rd house is all about how you communicate. You know, it's also ruling over your siblings, your neighbors, people you see on a daily basis, short-term travels, and, you know, cars. So the way that Pisces risings tend to talk to other people is in a very chill, kind of like underdog, understated kind of way, because Taurus is a sign that's ruled by Venus. Pisces risings talk to everyone in a way where they will feel comfortable. Having a 3rd house ruled by Venus just means that you want comfort, and you just want harmony, and you just want all good things to come out of your communication. Now, another thing is that having Taurus in the 3rd house means that whenever you get angry, you get really mad, because Taurus is a sign that's very slow and steady. It takes a lot to piss off a Taurus. It takes a lot to piss off the bull. But having this in your 3rd house, you might not speak up about the things that bother you for a really long time, but when you do, you're kind of popping off in a way. Now, directly opposite of the 3rd house is the 9th house. The 9th house is all about your long-term travel. It's all about learning. It's all about academia. It's all about what are your core beliefs about this life? Like, how do you believe in God? What do you believe in? What are the types of places that you like to travel to? That's all the energy represented by your 9th house. Scorpio energy is very transformative, and having it in your 9th house can mean that every time you go on a really long trip, or every time you go on like a really long-term vacation, anything like that, Pisces rising will come back very transformed, very different. Scorpio energy is ruled by both Mars and Pluto. So like I said, Mars can bring a little bit of trouble wherever it goes. You know, it always wants to assert its dominance. So like whenever you're on a vacation, you might like name yourself as the leader. But Scorpio is also ruled by Pluto. So Pluto rules over power, influence, control. Plutonian energy is kind of like where other people try to take your power away from you, but also where you tend to gain power. Now, what's interesting to me is that the 9th house also kind of rules over social media in a way. So I have a feeling that Pisces risings probably do very well on social media if they wanted to. Also because of something else that I'm about to get into, but I can't get too ahead of myself right now. But yeah, so Pisces risings also have Gemini in the 4th house. So family members that you have might have Gemini placements. But either way, your home life was or is very much so very communicative, very open to learning new things. Your 4th house of home and family is ruled by your Mercury. Mercury rules over the way that you communicate, the way that you think. So you might have had a very intellectual parent or a very intellectual family. So directly opposite of the 4th house is the 10th house, which is literally seen by everybody. It's very tip top of the chart, literally like it's up at the top right here. So here's where things get interesting, okay? Because if you were born in Gen Z, you most likely have your natal Pluto here and your natal Chiron. Like I said earlier, Pluto rules over power, control, power dynamics, influence, and transformation, right? Chiron isn't a planet, it's actually an asteroid, but it rules over a wound and healing. So having Chiron directly conjunct to Pluto, which a lot of people who are Gen Z have this, it just kind of means this area, the house that it's in is a very triggering area of your life. Having it in a very important area like the 10th house, ruling over career, public image, and reputation, the things that people say about you can really hurt. Something about your reputation can be very painful, but it can also be the same thing that kind of heals you in a way. Obviously, I'd have to look at your own individual birth chart to like give you more information, but you definitely want to go ahead and look at your Jupiter placement. It's going to give you more information because your Sagittarius 10th house is ruled by Jupiter. So overall, your public image, like the image other people have of you, is still very optimistic, but it also could either be very powerful, or people may see you as very powerful, or they may see you as very powerless. Having Sagittarius in the 10th house in general just means that you're very open to learning, and the career that you have might require you to travel quite a bit. Pisces risings also have Cancer in their 5th house. The 5th house is all about learning, creativity. It's all about your romantic life. It's all about your sex life and your children. So that's a lot of stuff to be ruled over just by one sign. The fact that Pisces risings have Cancer in the 5th house just kind of means that they're the most creative whenever you're at home. The types of creative projects that you make, for example, whether it's music or art or whatever, is typically very emotional, very heartfelt. And it could even have something to do with your family life because Cancer does rule over the family. Now, your 5th house is ruled by your moon, so whatever your moon sign is and the house that it's in is going to give you a lot more information on, how you express yourself creatively. Also, having Cancer in the 5th house just means that you are attractive to Cancer energy, and Cancer energy is very attracted to you. You most likely have really good sexual chemistry with both Cancers and Libras. Those are the signs that are in your sexual houses. But also having Cancer in the 5th house can just mean that you have a child who has a Cancer placement at some point, or just your relationship to your children is very maternal, very like Empress energy, if you know anything about tarot. Pisces risings have Capricorn in the 11th house, which is all about long-term friends and communities of people that you think similarly to. So for example, if you belong to a certain religion, or if you once belonged to the One Direction fandom, that would all be underneath your 11th house. Capricorn energy is going to feel very friendly and inviting to you, even if the Capricorn in question isn't necessarily the friendliest person. They will open up to you a lot easier than most other people. Pisces risings might notice that they have some long-term friends from childhood who might have been Capricorn or had Capricorn placements. But at the end of the day, your 11th house is ruled by Saturn. The thing about Saturn is that it is often referred to as a malefic planet, meaning that it sometimes brings about a bit of trouble wherever it is. So having an 11th house ruled by Saturn, the planet of hard lessons, might mean that you have to learn some really hard lessons about your friends throughout your life in order to cultivate good and stable friendships. Kind of like you have to go through like the worst of it with your friends to kind of learn the skills of what a healthy friendship looks like. But also having a Saturn ruled 11th house can also just mean that the friends that you have, you keep them for a really long time. Saturn is the planet of time, and it rules over anything that takes a very long time to build. Pisces risings also have Leo in the 6th house. The 6th house is all about work, health, your daily routine, your pets, and your physical health. Having Leo in the 6th house just means that you need to see beauty every single day. Leo energy is very radiant, so you might be the type of person who just radiates whenever you're at work. And you might also be the type of person who prefers to get all dressed up before you go somewhere. Pisces risings might feel a lot more productive if they look more attractive. Now, your 6th house is ruled by the sun. So whatever your sun sign is going to give you a lot more information about your daily life. Now, directly opposite the 6th house is the 12th house. The 12th house is one of the 2 hidden houses in your birth chart. It's all about mental health, your subconscious, spirituality, and even hidden enemies to an extent. Having Aquarius energy in your 12th house is really interesting because Pisces risings just operate mentally on a very different wave than other people do. If you were born in Gen Z, then you have both Uranus and Neptune in your 12th house. So Uranus being the planet of very quick innovation, and Neptune being the planet of creativity, but also addictions and also confusion. Some of you guys might even have these conjunct, so having both of these in your 12th house just means that you might find yourself solving emotional issues and solving mental issues in a very different but more effective way than other people do. Your 12th house would also be ruled by both Saturn and Uranus. So what's interesting is that Aquarius energy is quote unquote known for change, but it's ruled by both Saturn and Uranus. Saturn is not a fan of change and Uranus is. So how do those two planets coexist and make the energy of Aquarius? So Aquarius is a fixed earth sign. The fixed signs are not a big fan of change unless they are the ones initiating that change. And air signs rule over communication and thinking. So basically how this applies to your 12th house of mental health and spirituality and even isolation to an extent. This means that whenever Pisces risings isolate themselves, they get very creative, they get very innovative. But if left in that isolation too long, they can get a bit antsy. But that was the reading for Pisces rising. Let me know what your Jupiter sign is and what house it's in the comments down below. Make sure y'all like, comment, and subscribe, and see y'all later.